It's funny. The more people I meet in the truth community, the more I understand, just like health, that the journey to truth is your own. We're all here because we have a distrust in the media, primarily, and with the information that we receive. And everybody has a different tale as to how they arrived on the scene and started awakening and opening their minds to what was really going on behind the scenes. When I got into truth, I was 19 for the first time. And my journey went like this. I went to college and I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a war correspondent. I always had from the time I was 10 years old, probably younger. And I was so absolutely obsessed with politics and everything, on the news that I started working really young and I started saving up because I knew I was going to travel. And I got into college and I was so excited, I can remember, about pursuing my dream. And I wanted to learn everything about Central America. That was really where I was interested, Latin America. And I heard about the United Fruit Company. And of course, from there, I started learning about the genocide. My first year at college didn't go that good. It was the first time I was shut down for expressing my opinion. In high school, I got latitude, but when I got to university, it was quickly impressed upon me that you toe the line here. This is about you following a program. And it was actually my political science professor who pointed that out to me after he gave me my first D. I'd never seen one on anything to do with politics, for sure. I was always AAA and all of that. Never math. That's another story. In any case, it came to that second year of registering, and the only class I could get in Latin American studies was lesbianism in Latin America. And I thought to myself, how absolutely ridiculous is this? There is genocide going on. I'm committed to learning this. And you know what? This college is getting in my way. So I told my mom, of course, this is 1987. I told my mom I was going to Central America. And I was going to backpack my way through and I was going to learn. And I did. The first time I flew from Calgary to Cancun and then took a bus and down to Belize. And I have many stories to tell. The interesting thing is that along that journey, I opened my eyes even further to the point where I returned from, I did 2 different trips and it lasted about 10 months that year. I learned that the media could not be trusted. And I also came to understand that it was the stories on the ground that meant everything. And even in those days, as I was in Central America, the reporters for the big papers and in those days, they weren't there. And it's the first time I discovered that there was AP Wire, a news wire, and everybody got the news from pretty much the same people. One of my first personal experiences with an outright absolute lie was in about 1988. It was in those days, I was in this little town called Panajachel, and the guerrillas in Guatemala actually had a stronghold over the lake. There was a civil war going on, you have to understand. And of course, Panahachel was a place where us Westerners could all go party, hang out, drink, smoke, and talk politics till all hours of every single day. And it was a political hotbed of information coming from on the ground, from travelers. Now, of course, in those days, there was no internet. There was none of that. There was no cell phones, no smartphones. I mean, we know what it was like. And you couldn't get money. We all had traveler's checks. Except when we got there, we couldn't cash them. And of course, you couldn't carry much money with you. So what we would have to do is every couple of weeks, wherever you were, you sort of had to go to one of the big centers, the cities. So in this case, it was Guatemala City. So I took off, I went there. And it was on my way back that I was on a bus. And the chicken bus. And there were chickens. Ew, crazy, crazy times. And all of a sudden, I was close to the front and I was sitting with an old lady. And the bus drivers were doing the signaling as they were going by. And they were passing. And something wasn't right. And then we passed all of these army guys on the road. They were all lining up. They were in formations. And there was lots of them. And our buses continued on. And then, about 15 kilometers later, we were stopped. And I had a boyfriend at the time. He was in the back of the bus, not paying attention to anything. He didn't get what was going on at all. He was a great cover. But in any case, all of a sudden, I couldn't see ahead, but then all of a sudden, there was a blockade. And there were horses and men with bandanas over their faces. And there was a big rock ridge, and they were putting up this sign, like this banner on the rocks. And it was Viva de FMLN, because the FMLN in El Salvador which were the guerrillas, they had launched an offensive. And it was sort of a show of support of what was going on. They got on the bus, the guns were down, and they asked for a war tax. And it wasn't demanding or anything. They just got on the bus and people gave them money. And I mean, these people didn't have a lot of money. I always just kept $20 cash, like somewhere easy to grab, and that's what I gave to avoid any further problem. Then they got off the bus and we were allowed to continue on. Of course, there were buses ahead of us too. My worry was what was behind us. But anyway, we ended up going on our way. And it was a paper I saw 2 days later in one of the finer hotels. There weren't many in Panahachel at the time. There was one. I went to meet somebody for a coffee. And lo and behold, in the Miami Herald, they talked about this guerrilla attack where lots of people were killed, and they were talking like in the 18 to 20 range. There wasn't anybody killed. There was none of that. What they described, nobody was there. I was there. And that wasn't the energy of what was going on either. And I understood that anything could be contrived. Because none of those people would ever be available for comment again. Do you get where I'm going with that? And even with all of the technology today, who's the wiser? Until, of course, 5G. In any case, I think my point about all of it is the fact that, well, and the worst part, I guess, I have to get to is the fact that now once a week I had to call my mom. And in those days it was a phone office, so you had to go seek that out. And I always called at 7 o'clock. And she expected to hear from me because the only way she could know where I was is she was actually tacking me on a map. My poor mom. She told me she had also read this. And I had to, assure her that what she was being told was a lie. And of course, that came to the point, my mom, of course, believes that everything in the news, everything that's reported is truth. And we're finding that today, with so much information, how do we find the truth? Agenda 2030 just wants to eliminate any choice of the truth or any options to their truth. So we have to be wary of that. So at the end of the day, what do we have to do? We need to deduct the truth for ourselves. And that's why we're all here, because that's exactly what we're doing. Encouraging others to dig a little deeper. Nothing is as simple as it's presented. I look at the coronavirus, it's not simple. There's layers and layers and layers. There's layers into everything. What we need to do is stop listening to the programming and dig in to find that place that you resonate, whatever issue it may be, because they all lead to another. The enlightenment, I used to describe it in my hemp food company early in the day. Hemp was like a window for people who had never taken care of their health. For some reason, they attached themselves to the myth of the plant or the illegality or something that they felt unjust. And then, as they started eating it, they started feeling better. And the window opened. And then they discovered another thing. And then yet another, and another, and another. Because in enlightenment, the beat goes on. You cannot close it. It can't be contained. That's why they're trying to contain us. What we think, what we read, what we say, what we speculate about. This is what we truly need to be paying attention to. It's all about our freedom. And it's threatened with Agenda 2030. The truth is found in layers, and we have to unearth those layers because you know the powers that be are working darn hard to hide it from us. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I would love to have you here as long as I'm here. Always working on another avenue. And of course, Facebook and Instagram. Have a great day. And have fun peeling away those layers to find your truth.